Episode 400.
Episode 400, guys. We're a little giddy. I cannot believe we've gotten to 400. That's a huge number. I mean, just off the charts huge.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. We generally don't celebrate numbers, but there's something about this feels very monumental to me.
The fact that it's the last episode that we're going to record before the show comes out, it just feels like a number worth celebrating. You
got to finish that sentence without too much of a pause, because you just said, this is the last show we're going to record, and then you left it there for half a beat. Everyone's going, oh no, before the show comes out. And there will be a gap in episodes, right? We're going to not be recording podcast episodes for the books during the release of the show. We will be recording YouTube videos for the show. The reason we will be switching to YouTube is, we're talking about a TV show instead of books.
It's a visual medium.
All of a sudden, it's a visual medium.
Visual aids.
And so it's not going to go into the podcast feed. You will have to go to our YouTube channel to watch that stuff. And yes, it's monetized.
Yep.
So go ahead and watch the ad and then watch us talk about the TV show there.
Yeah, we're excited to continue making the content that you know and love just for the show. It's just we need to be on a different platform in order to make this work. Yeah. And we're making the leap over to YouTube. Please come with us.
As Jedi Pants reminded me, hit like and subscribe. Hit that bell. Oh God, do we have to say all that shit?
This is going to be weird. So yeah, you want to see us being bad YouTubers, come on over to the show. Obviously, we will continue to describe what we see when we're talking about stuff, but it's just for us to get the most out of it, we need to be able to see it as we talk about it. So if you find this episode long after the show has first dropped, obviously there's going to be more episodes right after this, but that's going to represent like a 2-month time jump on this particular feed. So
yes, expect podcast episodes back
in January.
Yeah,
sometime in early January we'll fire it back up.
But we're also going to have the holidays in there.
Yeah, exactly. The show's going to finish, and then we're going to have a whole bunch of holidays and post processing, and we'll start in January. We'll figure out exactly when we get there. But yeah, that's when we'll be back with Path of Daggers. And other than that, this is the last Path of Daggers chapter that we're going to record for 2021 before the show drops. Like, the world before the show drops is rapidly coming to an end.
And this break works on so many levels. I mean, it's the 400th episode. It's also a break in perspective before we spent the rest of the book with Rand and Egwene. So there very much is this break between perspectives that we hit with the Forsaken chapter today, and then we never go back to those other characters for the rest of the book. So this is a good break time to split and let the characters sit for a minute. And then, show coming out.
Which I'm pretty sure I mentioned in an earlier episode that I was going to go see Dune, and I was going to get to see the trailer on the big screen. Renting the theater for me and my friends and going with 17 of my friends was really fun. Having the theater to ourselves was amazing. But they didn't play the trailer. They played some other bullshit. So that was a little frustrating. I had been hyping that to, a bunch of people. Some of the people were there for their second watch and they'd already seen it once. A bunch of them were Wheel of Time fans. It was a bummer. But
yeah,
I will survive. And yeah, I just wanted to, I'm pretty sure I mentioned that in a prior episode. So I wanted to follow up and say I rolled unlucky on that one.
On that note, hopefully in 4 days, I will drive up to Seattle and see the first 2 episodes.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Worst case scenario, I figure I'm going to talk to a bunch of people in line. I'll take my mic and my recorder and maybe get a few interviews. But yeah, hopefully I can get up there and see the first 2 episodes a few days early.
Oh, man. And then I will not talk to you for 2 days because I refuse to get even the tiniest whiff of spoilers by the osmosis of you struggling to not say anything. I just not doing it.
Me suck at revealing non-spoilers? I don't know what you're talking about. I can totally keep a secret. It's fine. Fine.
Okay, Elaine.
Yeah. So, in conjunction with the show coming out, we have a little surprise for you at the end of this episode. If you'll listen to this whole thing, we'll have a little something for you to maybe do. Anyhow, the other thing I really wanted to say is at 400 episodes, there is no way we could not have done this without the amazing support of our patrons, right? We have had so many people over so many years continue to support us and continue to keep certainly a roof over my head. Like, this has had the podcast has done a lot to keep me employed and fed. So I can't say thank you enough. And it's allowed us to continue to make it on a regular basis. I don't think without the patrons, you would be seeing 400 episodes. You'd be seeing half that, maybe.
Yeah, it definitely isn't my living wage by any means. My warder is making much better money than I am. But this job does match when I worked in a library, which was one of the happiest jobs that I could possibly imagine. It was just as wonderful as you would think it was. And I miss it terribly. So the fact that I can make that much money, doing my second favorite thing, which is yelling about books one finds in a library, is really special. And that is something that is made possible by all of you, the patrons. So thank you, seriously, for supporting us in doing this.
I work in a restaurant, and so many of my coworkers, their bodies are just broken because they have to work 40, 50-hour weeks, and I don't. I can work part-time, and that's because of this podcast. And that means I come in there with a lot more energy, and everyone thinks I'm a great worker. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just not exhausted, guys. Like, I just don't have to work that hard.
That's
physically.
That's kind of shitty. That's some of that American dystopia that we like
Definitely.
to go on about.
So I had a specific list of people that I actually did want to thank who have helped us out in the last 3 months, which is about every 3 months we like to sit down and thank the list of people.
Especially since we're about to take a big old break. It's good to get this nice handful of people in. And we're going to actually trade off reading the names, right? I'm actually going to get a chance to butcher or not names.
Why don't you go ahead and start it off?
Okay, so starting for this in the past. This is a name I recognize from SpoilerCon, Sargon Vorha.
It's wonderful to meet you, and thank you for supporting us. Alan Bagley.
Kristen Sandoval Achua? Achun. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, see, you were saying you were not going to butcher them?
No, I said I wanted a chance to butcher them.
Oh, right.
Kristen Sandoval Acuna. Except it's got the thingamajig over it, so I'm saying it really bad. You're welcome.
Jamie K. Also SW Pants.
Jedi Pants, yeah, all over the Instagram comment situation with excellent thoughts about the episodes. That has been a hell of a binge to witness unfolding. So
and that's Jedi Pants
into
here.
the Patreon fold.
Yeah, no, every what was it, couple of days we'd get the message either on Instagram or I can't remember where we're getting the message.
Sometimes in Patreon also, because
in Patreon, that's right.
Then all this unlocked content got new comments.
Yep.
So yeah,
I was like, wow,
lots
that's
of
cool.
thoughts to be had there. Very enjoyable to read. Keep it up. Next we have Randir.
And then Knuckles Mustache.
I know Knuckles Mustache. I talked to Knuckles Mustache one time, and it was very cool. And I've seen them in some streams. So hi, thank you. You're wonderful. Lee is the next name.
Ginny Marshall.
Kent Washington.
Andrew Leonard. I wonder if you're any relation to the other Leonard who tends to give. Just wondering. Let us know.
Rudy Schultz.
Kathleen Murphy.
And last but certainly not least, Mark Graham.
Huge thank you to all our new patrons and to all the patrons who have continued to give. I think at one point we did sit down and read all of those names, but that is about an hour-long process.
Yeah, that was a long episode.
There are a lot. That was a long episode. There are a lot of people. So we try and keep up with the new folks. And again, if I have missed you, if you haven't heard your name in an episode, please let me know. A couple of people have written us, and we've either added them back in or found where we did say their name. So thank you so much. And let's actually get to recording an episode here. Do we need a bio break first or something? That was a lot.
No, I think we're good. Okay, let me checking chat. Jedi Pants says it was 3 months to get through 386 or so episodes. That's epic.
That's epic.
Very glad to have you all here. Very glad to have all the support. And now we got to get into a very hefty chapter. I was doing my notes being I am just highlighting so much.
I was highlighting a lot
my God,
too.
So much is going on here.
Don't expect this to be a short episode. So we're leaving on a banger, that's for sure. Because this is a Forsaken and
Cadsuane
chapter.
Which is
and the Cadsuane stuff is good. It's the best Cadsuane chapter, in my opinion.
Oh my god, so much plot building, so much world building, so much Cadsuane building. And in so many ways, she is like a Forsaken for the light. Like, she's just in a whole other level of badassery and power and knowledge. And she's like a Forsaken, but she's completely dedicated to the cause of the light in a very twisted, single-minded way. But still, she's distinctly not a dark friend. We know that without a doubt.
Not that Varen knows that for certain.
It's something Varen doesn't know. Oh my god, Varen doesn't know that.
She figures it out. So I guess
she figures it out. In the course of the series, she comes to know.
I suppose that's the corollary. Varen knows. Corollary. If Varen doesn't know, Varen will figure it out.
If Varen doesn't know, Varen will be finding out shortly.
This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast.
Chapter 12, New Alliances. And our symbol is the four-leaf clover snake, dark friendery symbol. Graendal wished there had been even a simple transcriber among the things she had removed from Ilion after Samael's death. This age was frightful usually, primitive and uncomfortable. Still, some of it suited her. In a large bamboo cage at the far end of the room, 100 brightly plumaged birds sang melodiously, almost as beautiful in their multicolored flitting as her two pets in transparent robes who waited on either side of the door, their gazes locked on her, eager to serve her pleasure. If oil lamps did not give the same light as glow bulbs, aided by large mirrors on the walls, they produced a certain barbaric splendor with the gilded fish-scale ceiling. It would have been nice to need only to speak the words, but actually putting them on paper with her own hand produced a pleasure akin to that she felt in sketching. The script of this age was quite simple, and learning to duplicate another's style had been no more difficult. Signing with a flourish, not her own name, of course, she sanded the thick page, then folded it and sealed it with one of the signet rings of various sizes that made a decorative line across the writing table. The hand and sword of Aradoman impressed on an irregular circle of blue and green wax. "Take this to Lord Ituralde with all speed," she said, "and say only what I told you."
So the first thing is she is missing text-to-speech.
Yep.
She's like, just a transcriber, right? Like,
yep.
That's all I wanted was something where I could talk and it would write. I guess there's some satisfaction to doing it yourself, but so barbaric.
Yep.
I love that. But we get the idea that she has been raiding Samael's stores since he's been killed by Rand.
Mm-hmm.
That somehow she's been doing it right under the noses of the Ashaman.
Very carefully, very sneakily, very right under their noses.
Mm-hmm.
She calls them dangerous puppies.
It made me wonder if she was in alliance with Taim, but I don't think so.
No, she's pretty shocked at him being elevated later, as I recall. So...
Mm-hmm. I think she's just sneaking in there.
Yeah, I agree. That's something she's not letting anyone else know about.
Mm-hmm. And of course, the hand that she's aping is the king's.
Yes. These are orders that are going out to Ituralde and making him do all kinds of stuff that he doesn't think is a good idea, but he's a good soldier who follows orders.
Kind of. These are actually... This letter in particular is the one he gets that says, "Gather as many men as you can and attack the Seanchan to the south." And we see that in the Crossroads of Twilight prologue. We see him get this letter.
Right. And that one he chooses not to obey, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the orders have become increasingly chaotic and he can see that. And this is the one where he breaks.
Well, isn't this the one where he sort of says, "Oh, I'm going to interpret this the way I want"?
Yeah, he goes Aes Sedai on it.
Uh-huh. And so he ends up following Rand because following Rand is Rand's leading the attack on the Seanchan. Am I remembering that correct?
Yeah, his entire focus is dealing with the Seanchan. That's his entire aim in life. And he keeps seeing the king give him orders that are not effective and are not characteristic of Al-Salam's leadership normally. That's why Ituralde follows him, is because he believes in Al-Salam's leadership. And he eventually gets into this place of like, I need to twist this to achieve the actual aims because I don't know what the fuck the king is doing. But I know that I can't let it go on. And when Rand comes, he's boxed in. He's on a suicide mission, basically, because he's totally boxed in. And Rand is, not the Shan-Chan. So he's able to, like, make that work mentally. He's able to do those mental gymnastics. That's how I remember it happening.
Right. Yeah. And I think I remember him taking this letter and then ignoring everything else that came after this. Because the whole point of this is to create chaos. And he just took this and was like, well, no, this is the thing. This is the order. I'm just picking one order and I'm sticking with it.
Yeah, because he completely believes this letter. He believes the subterfuge that it goes through. I mean, there's this whole discussion about make sure there's human blood on it. And, you know, if it came from this person with this person who was killed by shadow spawn, like blah, blah, blah. Like he completely buys that story. He's just such a good strategist that he twists it into something that turns out really good for our plot and our heroes.
Yeah, Lady Tuva was supposed to be killed by a gray man before passing this on, and, you know, he hears the story and believes it. We never meet Lady Tuva. I don't know if she's real. I don't know if she's made up. I think she's real. I don't know if, do you think Graendal killed her for the sake of the story?
I think she was probably...
With a gray man?
Well, not by a gray man. I bet she was just like someone who got taken out or someone who got taken by, like, as a pet or something. I mean, for all we know, she's one of the pets. Because she's got lady in the name. I mean, she's like, you know, a worthy pet. I don't know. But Ituralde, like, that's part of why he believes it is because he knows Lady Tuva. Gotcha. As I recall. Again, this is, I think that's one of the things that happens in the last 3 books. So my knowledge is a lot weaker. My confidence in what I think I know is a lot weaker.
I've been trying to I actually just went through them once, missing chunks of it just to try and refresh my brain.
I should do that. Because, just reread the last 3 because the reread count will never even out otherwise.
That's true. Yeah, there's such an advantage to the Jordan books. Really, for me, it's the last 4 because I never really once after Jordan died, I didn't reread book 11 very much, and so it was only that I really, when Sanderson finished the series, I sort of reread book 11 for probably only the second time, and then the last 3. So I've only really read book 11 one more time than the other 3. Now, I've still read them all a lot at this point. But it's always good to have a refresher on that. Yeah.
So the person who's carrying the message is someone who's almost hot enough to actually have sex with, rather than just compulsing to think that he's had sex with her, which is just the depths of her depravity and lack of giving a shit about consent just cannot be overstated.
Nope. No, but I mean, she burns people's brains out. Once you start doing that, consent's really not on the table anymore. You know, that's like, you don't consent to getting your brain burned out. So, which I have an interesting question about compulsion. There really does seem to be 2 forms, right? There seems to be the touch that, like here, she does on Cyndane and Moghedien, which is super light. They worship her. It's like we saw it used on Nynaeve and Elaine.
Right. It's described as almost strong enough to do harm.
Yeah. Okay, so, and it's just a strength thing, you think? I was wondering if there's, like, maybe when you tie it off, if it, like, sunk into somebody over time, like, that would cause harm if you left it sitting there rather than just holding the weave for a while?
That's an interesting question.
So I was thinking, like, the difference between harm and not harm would be the tying off of it.
Because she says in this chapter, like, she spins it strong for anger's sake, almost strong enough to do harm. So, but I think it maybe also has to do with, like, what you're being compelled to do. Like, if you're being compelled to talk to someone and give up your secrets, that's different than if you're being compelled to, like, participate in orgies or be good at playing an instrument or, you know, whatever. So there might be, like, degrees of, like, how far off from what they would normally do are you pushing them? And that might also invoke, like, how much harm is done.
I'm also thinking, like, if you're not holding it, you somehow have to attach it to the brain, and maybe that attachment is what does the damage.
Right, as opposed to just, like, holding, like, a field on them. You're actually, like, anchoring something into them. Yeah, maybe. Exactly. I could see that.
Sort of the way we saw the barbs from the Dark One's taint in Rand's head. That, like, the compulsion is... Because I sort of thought of that. She compares it to compulsion in a way as this, like, dark compulsion over the brain.
And she has to heal each spot when she takes it out of the other Ashamon's head. Like, every single spot has damage. And, I mean, because we see, like, you know, Morghese isn't really permanently like brain damaged by what Ravien did to her. I mean, she's emotionally damaged and all this stuff, but she's not like, you know, lobotomized by it. And he had to keep re-upping it, right? As soon as she got away from him, it started to fade. So that does kind of support your theory that he was deliberately not using the brain burnout method because that wasn't his style. Whereas Graendal's like, yeah, no, totally burned them out and uses a different style.
He also was canonically not very good at compulsion, I think.
Right.
And that's partially why, like, he just wasn't good at it. Like, I mean, that's why he had to keep upping it. He just sucked. Like, it wasn't his specialty. He used it, but it was something he maintained on a regular basis and didn't have the subtle. And, you know, Graendal, but of course that's coming from Graendal, who thinks everybody sucks at compulsion. So take that with a grain of salt.
It's funny that she thinks to herself that these orders will satisfy the Great Lord's command to increase chaos. Nothing else would, short of balefire. And I'm thinking of how Natrin's Barrow goes down and the fact that she almost dies. And like we get a fucking Bale scream that like ripples across the whole world as far as we know from that. And that's about her. And it's just like, is it foreshadowing or is it an interesting coincidental choice of words? It's not exactly foreshadowing, but it is an interesting choice of words.
Yeah. I mean, the Bale Scream, I think, is one of the closer point where, like, the world comes close to shattering on that. Like, one more wave, it seems like, and it would have shattered.
Which, yeah, I believe that, you know. Rand used Kalendor to wipe out an entire city. Like, or a fortress.
Fortress, yeah.
It's a small city, I think, like a little town in Nynaeve's eyes, and she's come from like the Two Rivers, so.
But also significant. Think about how many orders, how many communication, how much stuff has gone through that place in, I don't know, the last day or so, right? Like, yanking all of those threads out of the pattern, like, it's the difference between, like, plucking a thread and just, like, taking a hook, digging it into a weave and just yanking, right? Like, you're gonna pull a lot more threads.
Oh, and chat is correcting me. It was the Cho'odon call, not Kalendor. Thank you, Caldric.
Oh, which is even worse, yeah. It's even a bigger knife.
But yeah, no, that's a really good comparison. This is, you know, picking out the stitching really carefully versus just cutting. You know, it's a very different kind of thing. But yeah, it was a lot. So it's funny that she's thinking about, oh, this is what causes chaos. And it's like, yeah, balefire. Yeah, you instigate a use of balefire that almost ruins everything for everyone. Good job.
Hold on. In fairness, it really is Rand being crazy, though.
It is Rand. I was going to say overreacting, but he's not
response.
Overreacting. That's how you deal with someone like Graendal. It's luck that, well, it's planning on her part that she doesn't die in that.
She's smart. I mean, Graendal is a tough opponent. I think that's one of the reasons why I like her so much, is she's one of the few Forsaken who's smart, clever, gets out of situations, makes clever plans. Honestly, if our boys didn't have plot armor, she would be way more effective.
So much more. So much more. Yeah.
Like, she just runs into Tavierness all the time. That's what taking down Perrin is just basically like, yeah, everything's going to go his way. Sorry. Nice try.
Yeah. Yeah, no, she's epic. She might be my second favorite Forsaken.
Yeah. Who's your first?
Masana. The researcher.
Figures.
Yeah.
Really, Masana? She's barely even...
The disgruntled academic. I like her backstory. I don't think she's very effective, but I love her backstory and I love what she tries to do. And I love how she gets taken down by Egwene. Like, I love everything about Masana's story and arc. And so she's my favorite. But yeah, I think Graendal, because of her effectiveness, it has to be my second favorite.
Same.
Who's your first favorite then?
I gotta go with Moridin. I love what Moridin does. I like the nihilism, right? That's really like, to me, everyone else is stupid and selfish, but I'm like, the nihilism I get. The nihilism, I'm like, ooh, good point, you know? And then on top of that, just like, he's as insane as Rand. He actually sort of does the reverse Rand. He starts out insane and becomes more sane over time, which is just weird. He's such a good mirror to Rand. I love the way they set up his antagonists. I love the way he becomes Nabliss. Everyone else is just dominoes to be knocked down, you know? And Moridin, in a lot of ways, does get relegated to that at the end, but he has such an influence over Rand, and he is Rand's mirror. I love him. I love his story. I love him playing chess. I love that, like, I am the evil mastermind behind everything, and I will control it. And, like, that just makes me happy and fuzzy. Like, yeah, you're gonna fail, but this, what I love is seeing, again, we talk about Jordan's POVs. I love it that he doesn't show us one evil mastermind plotting everything. He shows us 7 evil masterminds, each with their own evil mastermind planned, and none of them work because they all interfere with each other, and that's why the good guy wins. And that to me is really masterful POV writing, that all works the way it does, that everyone's just trying to do their own selfish thing, and what comes out is a coherent story that also goes somewhere, right? Like, because I've seen authors do the sort of, oh, I'm going to tell this story where everyone reacts to what they need to react to. And yes, they're very good stories, but they never go anywhere because you can't plot your way out of a plot line by characters just reacting. You have to have a destination in mind. But at the same time, if it's just like, oh, and then the characters work together at the end point where they needed to fight for no reason, you're like, okay, that's great. Why? Give me some motivation here, please. So Jordan does the balance. So that's my point.
Yeah. Next thing I have is Graendal having a plain golden band to Rangrial that makes her more of a badass than she was for the rest of the series. She has this, I think, through the whole rest of the series.
And it's noticed several times by people because they're like, why is Graendal wearing a plain
It's so
ring?
unlike
That's
her.
weird. Yeah, it's so unlike her. And I think, is it Demandred who's is like, that's not Grial?
I think so.
Or is it?
I think it's him.
Could be one of the other Forsaken. But
yeah, but it's important. Angrial attuned to women. And then she thinks to herself she has to increase the pace of her own plans and distance herself from Samael's disaster and be like, no, wasn't with him, don't know him, never heard of him. Who? What?
We weren't aligned to meeting 3 times a week.
Nope.
No idea what you're talking
Didn't
about.
even know he was dead. That's her first plan of attack. And then she gets a very polite gateway with the courtesies of an earlier age, right? The slash appears, but then it's still opaque and there's a chime. And then she chimes in return so they know that they're clear to come through, and it's very civilized. And evil people have manners. Delightful.
It makes sense from I don't want to randomly kill people into this place I'm gatewaying into, but I also don't want to travel 3 days outside of my destination. So the Age of Legends came up with this, okay, I'm opening a doorway and saying, chime, get out of the way. There's going to be a big doorway gateway opening here. Please don't get cut in half.
It's basically
beep, so
beep,
yeah.
Beep,
Yeah.
beep. It's that, but a nicer tone, hopefully.
Yeah. I was thinking on the subway, the doors are closing.
Mind the gap.
Please keep clear of the doors. Only instead of in a subway, the doors close, you might get your hand stuck. In a gateway, your hand just, falls off.
Yeah, the gateway closes regardless.
Yeah.
That part's cool.
And don't tell me they didn't get that in Endgame. They didn't steal that from Wheel of Time.
Oh my god. Yeah, I know. I saw that and I'm like, why did they have Wheel of Time gateways? I mean, I just saw the GIF of it. I didn't see the end game because I don't care. But there was a very cool video about it. Anyhow, irrelevant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's interesting. It's almost like the gateway doesn't even cut an item. It's just that one half of the item is now on this side of the world, and the other half of the item is on that side of the world.
Yeah, it's like a displacement in the space-time continuum.
Yeah,
because that's how traveling works. It's a tesseract. So then we get our first view of Cyndane.
Now we've known she's back before. We got a drop or a hint about it, right? There was a mention of a blonde or something like that, but this is the first time we interact with her.
Is this the first mention of Cyndane?
Well, there's definitely a point where Moridin has 2 Kosuvra. Yeah. So we know she's been back for a while, but this might be the first time we actually interact with her.
Yeah, right. Yes, exactly. We know it's hers, just obviously. But yeah, this is the first time we see her and get an evaluation of her and who she is and what's up with her. So Moghedien and Cyndane waltz on through the gateway dressed in red and black because they are Moridin's servants. Moghedien's very nervous. Cyndane's very haughty.
Which I love that Moridin's colors and Rand's colors are the same.
Yeah.
The red and black. Yeah. Yeah. There's just, again, what I was saying, the parallels.
Yeah, for sure. Graendal has this hilariously petty thought, red and black did not suit her coloring, and she should have made better use of such an impressive bosom. It's so you feel threatened. And then we know why she feels threatened shortly, because she realizes that Cyndane is more powerful than her in the one power. She did not get diminished Oh, no, she did get a little diminished by the Eofin. Not as much as Moraine.
I don't. Not as much as Moraine. I don't think she lost any significant amount of power, if any at all. Like, I don't think they had her long enough.
No, she's been, at some point, someone says she is weaker than Lanfear.
Okay.
And that's why the Forsaken write her off as not being Lanfear. It's like, well, she is weaker.
Lanfear.
But she's stronger than Graendal, which is very rare. So it's like, what's going on? And that's one of your clues. It must be her. And somehow she's been diminished. So she must have gotten diminished by like 5%, whereas Moraine gets diminished by like 95%.
Moraine's in there for a much, much, much longer time. I mean, Moraine's still in there, right? Getting sucked out, whereas Cyndane's been out for a while. Because Cyndane was in there for a short period of time, then Moridin goes in and just and kills her.
Right, yeah. So I wonder if that had anything to do with why she's diminished
Moraine
more. That would make sense. Yeah, it's weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks.
They just keep feeding on Moraine.
I mean, and time flows differently, so.
Does it in the world of the I guess it has to, because they were in there for 7 days. Or like, Matt was in there for 7 days while Rand went through the Angreal.
Yeah, and the realm of the Fae is notoriously slippery when it comes to time.
Right. Cyndane starts absolutely acting like Lanfear. Just arrogant, demanding. She's the one in charge. Moghedien is not the one in charge, interestingly, because of a mistake she made. Perhaps balefiring a ship across the harbor before coming back to Moridin?
I mean, if I had to guess, I would say yes.
Yeah. I'm guessing she got caught for her attempt on Nynaeve's life.
Yeah, I think so. And she's, because it doesn't really matter either way, she's only being sort of punished. She's not being, like, killed.
Right. She probably wasn't even late. She probably just was, like, discovered.
Right.
Because she did it in front of the entire city.
Yeah, it was so dumb.
Everybody saw that. Yeah.
So dumb.
They ask about the weather. Have you paid attention? And she's like, nope, I never go outside.
Nerd.
Which, by the way, how creepy is that? She never goes outside. She doesn't even have windows. What kind of person sits in a room with no windows and plots and records and makes videos about the... Oh, wait. Shit.
Yeah, I was having that thought as I did my notes, looking at my window that, like, has cardboard and stuff in front of it. And, like, I've literally closed off light from the outside world, and I've got artificial lighting, and I just want to sit on my computer for every single task I do. Yeah, I was like, oh, fuck.
Oh, fuck. Well, we're all a little Graendal.
I guess so.
You know I seldom go outside.
He's like, call me out, Jordan.
Well, he does talk about her pale, she's got that pale skin from never ever seeing the sun, right? Yep. Guess what? Here in the Pacific Northwest, we can go outside and we still never see the sun.
It's very true. I am currently, we are both actually currently under an atmospheric river event that is projected to last through the weekend. And in my part of the world, it's supposed to drop as much as a foot of rain. And given that we got 3 inches of rain in the gauge this morning, I believe it. And for those of you who don't do feet in inches, normally a foot would be 12 inches. So if we got 3 already and the storm's supposed to last through Saturday, we could totally get 12 inches. That's very possible.
Which is about a meter. Seriously, 13 inches is a meter. Almost
really?
Exactly.
I freaking had a meter taped onto my chalkboard while I was in school this whole time, trying to keep track of things.
Sorry. I'm off by 3.
Thank you.
3. Sorry. 3 times. You said a foot. I was thinking a yard.
Yes,
a yard is almost a meter.
A meter and a yard are the comparable ones. I'm like, dude, you can't. No, I had one on the wall for a long time in an effort to know these things.
Welcome to SI Units with Wheel of Time Spoilers Podcast.
We both have a little bit of a science background, so I actually I make weather reports on my local Facebook group, like to the community, and I report the rain and I report stuff from like my electronic gauge. And someone asked if I could put the measurement in Fahrenheit, which I was doing. So I told them that I was doing that, and then someone jokingly said, "You should put it in Celsius too for us science nerds." And I'm like, "Oh, you thought that was a joke? You just gave me a suggestion, so now I'm putting it in Celsius every day on my little report." So I'm gonna forcibly teach myself the conversion for the temperatures that I live in very, very aggressively. I'm gonna start memorizing the range of temperatures that I live at.
Let's be honest. We should really just stick with Kelvin. It's got a natural 0 point.
Yes, Kelvin.
We live between 273 and 293, give or take.
That's an extremely useful scale that we should all adopt.
Yep,
Plenty
definitely.
of nuance, super easy to memorize. Yeah. That's great.
No problems. No problems. Because absolute zero is something we encounter on a daily basis, right?
Yeah, all the time. That's a really normal condition.
So, okay, here's my trick for Fahrenheit, right? So, if you want to know what Fahrenheit is, think of it as a percentage, where 0 is just about the coldest winter you'll ever encounter, and 100 is just about the hottest summer you'll ever encounter before climate change.
That caveat is just, ugh.
Yeah. And so, obviously, 0 is quite a bit below freezing, because you can have a much colder than freezing winter, and 100 is not nearly boiling, because at boiling we'd all be dead. So it's sort of the normal range of temperatures at which a human exists at. If you think of like, what's the optimum temperature? Well, about 73% of maximum temperature is comfortable. So about 73 degrees is about what I like to sit at, 50% of the maximum temperature is kind of chilly. 10% of the maximum temperature is really cold.
That's a cool way of thinking of it. I've never heard that description. I dig it.
110% of the maximum heat is really, really hot. 114%, which is what it was here in the summer, is going to kill you. Yeah. Right? Like, yeah.
Yeah. Anyhow.
That's how it was sort of came up with originally, is it was the guy who sat down and came up, Fahrenheit, I guess his name was like, what's the coldest temperature I experience and what's the hottest temperature I experience? And I'm going to put those on a scale and just assume anything outlier is going to be an outlier.
Yeah. It's not the worst.
It's not scientific in the slightest.
Yeah, it makes sense at an emotional level, but that's not great for science.
Yeah. But it is very good at communicating between people. Like, how do you feel? What temperature is it? It's about, 98% of So, okay, moving on.
Okay, so Graendal changes her mind about how she wants to lie about her relationship with Samael on the spot because of Cyndane being so strong. She's like, oh yeah, he just wanted my help and I didn't want to reject him because, you know how dangerous men are when you reject them. Sorry. I mean, you know how dangerous Samael specifically, because hashtag not all men, Samael is if you reject him, which is just like, great. Toxic misogyny amongst the most evil, powerful people. Love to see it. Great. But yeah, she's like, no, he just wanted my help. I didn't actually help. I just didn't want to get murdered in my sleep for saying no.
No. So it's basically saying Samael's an incel. You reject him and he gets violent.
I mean, not only incels do that, but
fair.
But yeah,
fair. That is a more general male trait. I will admit to that.
Particularly amongst like jocks. Just going to throw all jocks under the bus. Just categorically.
Yeah, that seems fair to me entirely. That's not prejudiced.
Yeah, no, that's not painting with too broad of a brush in the slightest.
No, not in the slightest.
I know very many people who do
calling you out
sports
on that
ball
one.
who are fine people.
Very many. There's a difference between, I think, doing sports ball and having sports ball be identity.
Right, yeah. I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of very notorious cases of assault that have to do with professional or, college-level players being super uncool about physical boundaries and consent.
I'm just picturing the mirror world where we're a bunch of jocks being like, those damn nerds. They don't know how to socialize, and they end up like not keeping their hands to themselves, and like, oh man, can't deal with those nerds. We got
there's plenty of nerd incel overlap, unfortunately.
Exactly.
So
I talk about the reason I couldn't really hack it in the programming community. It was just the blatant misogyny that it was part of the reason I just got so angry at everybody. It was that and the toxic, and the toxic masculinity that was really just on display constantly with competition and anger and just one-upsmanship and stuff like that. It wasn't just the misogyny.
They all go together.
So anyway, they all go together. It was very frustrating to want to do something like programming that I had a passion for and feel that there was no place for it.
Yeah. But all that is to say, it makes sense that Samael is not someone that you want to say no to if you're a woman.
Right.
Great. I mean, presumably no. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, I'm going to stick with that.
I did notice that suddenly Cyndane's big eyes opened even wider and she gasped, shuddering. At the same time, Moghedien wraps her arms around herself.
Corsufra fondling.
Yep.
He's fingering the
I can just-
Korsuvra.
So now I'm just picturing Moridin sitting there, holding his pair of Kasura in his hands, just rolling them around.
Like little stress balls.
And make sure not to squeeze them too tight, because that could cause problems if you squeeze your pair of Kasura.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't break your Korsuvra.
Don't do that. No, that would be bad. Don't bust your Kasura. So yeah, Cyndane basically informs Graendal, Moridin is Nabliss. The Great Lord has decided it's time for you to serve Nabliss too. This is really the turning point for them. You know, I've talked about the last book really being the setup for the finale. The Dark One is doing the same thing. He's saying, okay, you've had your fun. You are now under this man's command. You are all falling in line. We have one army, one goal, one leader. No longer are you going your own way.
Yeah.
And that's the setup for the final battle.
Yeah, Dark One's like, I'm setting up my chessboard now. I need my pieces to come in from wherever they've been hiding. Graendal is sitting in a chair that looks like a throne because she understands psychology, and then gets really pissed off at the thought of a man she's never heard of being Nabliss. Kind of cracks her composure a bit.
Which again, it always bugs me that none of them are like, they know they can be reborn into a new body. That's something they're aware of. Why do they not believe that any of the dead Forsaken have come back as these new powerful? Like, really? You can't figure out that Ishmael is Moridin?
Maybe they figured that the Great Lord won't because now's the final battle?
Mm.
And they're surprised that he does? I don't know. They never think about it, so we don't get any explanation for it. That is a weird gap.
That it's not even a suspect of, like, maybe he is one of the Forsaken that have been brought back. Which ones have died? I don't know. You know, I mean, she knows Asmodean's not coming back.
But they do kind of come to the some of them come to the conclusion that Moridin is like over time. They're like, did the Grey Lord do it? Oh my God. So it's like, it's weird they don't think of it sooner, but they do eventually think of it. So maybe it's just that Jordan hadn't quite worked that mechanic out when he started and kind of had to bring it in over time.
Yeah. Or this is just when she's hearing about him. It's not until she meets him. She's like, oh, that's a Shawmale. This is just like some dude I haven't heard of. Like, that doesn't make any, she has no clues at this point as to who that could be.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. Also, I noticed that Great Lord's Regent on Earth. I said when we saw the trailer that they don't use the word Earth in the series. I was wrong. Clearly they do.
That makes me wonder if the Great Lord has other regents on other planets.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. Other turnings of the wheel. I mean, one would assume.
Yeah.
Other mirror worlds. Because we talk about all, the last battle, there's all these worlds compressed together and we see them all taking place at the same time, at the same place. So one would assume that they have other hands of the dark. The dark has lots of hands in all the various worlds.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever see Adventure Time?
No, I've been told to watch it, but I never have.
At one point, they're in a multi-dimensional area, and he cuts off the bad guy's hand, and it falls into all the dimensions and has its own sentience, so there's an evil hand in every dimension. And so, like, that's sort of what I was thinking of, is like, oh, the Dark One has a hand in every dimension, and that's just the Fade,
Yeah.
But it's different in each one. Yeah. A finger in every pie.
So then we get this cool little showdown. It's like not quite a Mexican standoff, but like it's kind of got that energy of like quick draw.
Well, the issue is Moghedien's trying to turn out the lights, not because she's trying to then attack Graendal or fool her or do anything else. She's turning off the lights so the Fade can ride the edge of the shadows.
Oh, I was wondering what the whole plunging the room into shadow thing was about. I did not get it. I thought it was just for dramatic effect. And I'm like, what? So that the Fade would have the shadow he needed to ride in. Oh, that makes so much sense. Duh.
So that was her command. Travel there, plunge the room into darkness to summon me.
Oh, duh. Man.
I had not, that went over my head until this reread specifically, when I was like, oh, why does he appear? I think even just now is when I saw that, not even during the notes, right? So, but I was like, yeah, no, that's absolutely why she does that.
Yeah.
Because you were like, why? I'm like, they're not fighting. Oh, that's why.
Amazing. I love it.
Yeah, right?
But I also love how Graendal, like, the second the lights go out, she, like, moves out of her chair so that she's not where they expect her. Like she knows how to
Smart.
get her hands dirty with this stuff. She's not the same kind of coward that like Moghedien or Asmodean are, you know?
Nope. No, she avoids a fight because it doesn't make sense to fight. But when she does fight, she's good at it.
Which is a badass thing for her to do, given that she's, you know, the picture of indolence and lascivious luxury.
Well, but don't forget, she started out as...
Ascetic.
Yes. What's the word?
Ascetic?
Ascetic, thank you.
Not acidic.
Yeah, someone who... No. Or acerbic.
And not, I guess, is it kind of like acetic acid? I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, my last name was supposed to be acerbic.
Acerbic?
Yeah, that was my father was adopted. His original name was Acerbus, I think. Yeah, I think that's right. A funny little fact.
Huh, interesting. Okay, Super Sky like saying it's pronounced with a soft E, and no, it's not like acetic acid. Yeah, but yeah, she basically was someone who forswore luxury and pleasure seeking and lived a very simple life. And then after 200 years of seeing all of that sacrifice mean absolutely nothing to the state of the world, she decided to 180 and become a complete hedonist, Epicurean, Bacchanalian.
It's about me.
Like...
We're only here to have pleasure. That's why we're on this earth. Like there is no other purpose. There is, in a way, she's just as much as a nihilist as Moridin is.
Yeah.
Like you're here to enjoy yourself at anyone's expense. Don't worry about it. Just,
yeah, just get yours.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's badass for her to still retain a little bit of like actual self-preservation and skills, not just being like, Baron Harkonnen or something.
Right. She very much could be, yeah. That is sort of the other way to represent that hedonistic aspect, right? Is like someone who just demands everything be brought to them and is angry when nothing goes their way, whereas she's like very cleverly ensures that all of her base desires are met.
Yeah. And stays healthy and in shape and not needing magic to lift her around.
So in comes Shadar Haran.
And we're not going to talk about the compulsion? I guess we kind of already did talk about the compulsion.
I mean, yeah, she compels them to answer the question, and they're basically like, yeah, he's on his way. Like, we're telling the truth, right? Like, you're going to kill us.
So the ground is totally shifting under her right before Shadar Haran shows up. She's like, wait, what am I missing? And Shadar Haran's like, me, right. Bitches.
Because he walks in, and he shuts off the one power.
And he terrifies her birds into basically dying. Like, I mean, like, they start chirping a whole bunch, and then they just, as soon as he starts talking, they just all stop. And like, it doesn't say they die, but like, they're birds. How much stress can they really take?
Oh, Graendal knew they had frozen in terror. I think literally just they're frightened of the ball.
I bet they'd die.
Okay, bloodthirsty much. It doesn't say they die. They don't have to die.
It doesn't say they don't.
Fine, they're dead. We'll headcanon that. Thanks.
I just added dead animals to the story for no reason. It's more dramatic.
This is one of those places where I got very confused about the difference between true source, one power, and true power.
Yeah, I highlighted that. The true source vanished. The one power vanished. What?
You're repeating yourself, Jordan.
Yeah, but the true power would be a different thing. It's... why, Jordan? Why?
And the true power is probably what the Murdral is channeling, right? That ball of something is a black ball created by
because this is the Dark Lord's hand, and it makes sense that that would be the magic being utilized in that way.
It also makes sense to me, and we've talked about how a fade is... we talked about how Trollocs are human mixed with animal DNA. The fades are most likely... They call them throwbacks, but what I think they are the channelers' souls that got mixed with the animal DNA.
Right.
And so it makes sense that a fade would be the one who could channel the true power because they would be the soul of a channeler.
Yeah. And then, the Dark Lord picks one and is like, you're my avatar. Yeah. Have some extra juice.
I wonder if there was some ceremony with like 13 Murdral and 13 channelers to like impregnate the Murdral with the soul of the Dark One or something like that. Somehow link it to it.
Some satanic...
Not really sure if there would be some ceremony.
Interdimensional hocus pocus.
Right. Because we see ritual very much like that to put a being of darkness inside channelers. So imagine putting the being of darkness inside a fade.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet there had to have been something. It can't just happen out of nowhere. That's got to have some dark, creepy ritual. Shitanic. Yes, Caldric. Shitanic.
Yes. Shitanic ritual, not
Super
satanic.
Skylar's like, it's probably some number that wasn't 13. Like 666.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. That would work.
Or like 13 squared or something like
72, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, that full 72. It might take a full channel.
The fullest circle.
That would make sense. I could see a full circle being created and then maybe that's why it took them so well.
No, I bet they were able to just take an existing adult fade and turn them, much like you can turn an adult channeler. Like, I bet they were able to just be like, you are now a shell that a new soul, Murdral style soul, can inhabit.
And we do get a little hint about why it's possible. Agenor had thought the creatures were not quite in the world in the way everything else was. Slightly out of phase with time and reality. He had called it, whatever that meant. And I think that, the out of phase with time and reality is just Jordan being a physicist right there. Like, that phrase makes me so happy. Just like, oh. And that's why the Dark One can infect them. Because they're out of phase with time and reality, he can touch them.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that part of just like, there's this really bad movie I remember watching with like a time travel watch, and it was like a bunch of teenagers and stuff. But at one point for the climax, they end up using the time travel watch inside a bubble of space that's already being time traveled. So it's like doubled up, and he gets all like vibratey.
Did I see that on Netflix?
I mean, maybe.
Sounds familiar. Keep going.
Yeah, but it's just...
I'm assuming it's called Time Watch or
something like that. It was not Inception. It was much cheesier than that. But yeah, for some reason, this always makes me think of that. Like, just because the person ends up like, being able to like put their hand like through tables and stuff because they're just moving so fast with the time stuff doubled up together. But it was a really cheesy movie, like really dumb jokes and physical comedy and... for, young adults.
Can I tell you, Googling watch time travel movie is really not coming up with the results that I want. Because they're saying, here's a show to watch, not here's a time travel movie with a watch.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Teenager time travel is not going to get you a whole lot more specific of references either.
Mm-mm.
I'm sure someone out there knows the movie I'm talking about and is like, yes, exactly.
Write it in, because I want to watch that movie, actually.
Yeah, I mean, if you want a lighthearted, early 2000s kind of movie about time traveling teenagers getting away with something at their high school or something, stopping the end of the world. I don't know. There's a physicist involved.
I'm stunned. The details are just... This is why eyewitness reports are definitely the reasons to convict people for life.
Yeah. Okay. So the Murdral waltzes in and introduces himself by killing two of her prettiest pets because that's appropriate. And then she promptly changes all her plans. So, I mean, clearly it was effective.
Yeah. I swear, though, that's like just the standard move when you walk into Graendal's thing and you're like, I'm going to piss you off by killing a few of your pets. Like, doesn't Samael do that with his gateway when he's leaving? When he's pissed at her, he like uses the gateway to kill a few. And she's like, again?
Right? Yeah, that's
Jeez,
why she has so many.
I just cleaned up that mess. Yeah.
Yeah, it's bad. It's really bad.
And she immediately, basically sums up what's going on and goes, oh, yeah, okay. Whatever you say, like, you are the Dark One, and that's who I am obedient to. Like, it does not make sense to fight you, basically.
Yeah.
You are braver than most and wiser.
Yeah, the Murdral laughs and says she can call it Shadar Haran. And it makes me think of when Moghedien was wondering if Leandrin was going to stay loyal. Like that whole conversation, except that in this case, I think that she really doesn't mean to betray Shadar Haran. Clock stoppers. I think it might have been clock stoppers.
Clock stoppers make sense. Yeah, I think.
Yes, it was clock stoppers. Definitely. I just looked up images of it. Clock stoppers. That's the movie.
Clock stoppers.
2002.
All right, watching that.
Early 2000s. Yeah, it's so dumb. Absolutely watch it.
So I'm going to read us out of this POV. As it issued its commands, a visit to this Moridin was first, it seemed. She would need to be on her guard against Moghedien, and perhaps Cyndane also, taking revenge for her brief use of compulsion. She doubted the girl was any more forgiving than the spider. She decided to keep to herself the letter she had sent to Rodel Ituralde. Nothing, she was told, indicated that her actions would be displeasing to the Great Lord, and she still had to consider her own position. Moridin, whoever he was, might be nameless today, but there was always tomorrow. So, never stops, never quits with the scheming and the plotting. Never.
Nope. She keeps going through everything.
I love that little summation of the Forsaken.
Mm-hmm.
We've killed a lot of the male Forsaken, but almost none of the female Forsaken.
Yeah.
Because, like, the only one who's dead is Lanfear, and she's back.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it makes sense, though, because Rand is the main one killing them, and he has a hard time killing women. So it makes sense that he's starting with the low-hanging fruit of the not women.
Mm. See, whereas I would again disagree that Rand really kills any of the Forsaken.
Well, okay, fair.
Ravine is killed by Moraine. Samael is killed by the Fog. Aes Moghedien is killed by Graendal.
Ravine is killed by Rand. Bilal is killed by Moraine.
Bilal is killed by Moraine. Ravine. Well, Ravine's killed by
Nynaeve and Rand tag team.
and Rand, yeah, tag team. That was the one, yeah. So it's always funny to me that like Rand really has very few actual kills of the Forsaken, and the ones he does have are like with an assist.
Yeah, that's super fair.
And yes, he killed Shamael a couple of times. But he's back.
Just the fact that Shamael doesn't stay dead is not on Rand.
Right. That's fair. But like of the ones that are dead and are staying dead, very few of those are Rand. Yeah. Agenor, and I would say, killed himself. Agenor tried to, pull too hard on a big weight and it crushed his head.
Yeah, and then Balthamel got crushed by a tree, which was cool.
Yeah.
Take a quick break before we get into this next section.
Yeah, I think it's time. We've been going for a bit on this, and I think we could use a break. So, all right. While she's not here, I really do want to figure out, did Rand actually kill any of the Forsaken? Besides, Ravine with an assist that stayed dead. Shamael, no, technically. If anything, Shamael ended up killing himself by going into Rand's body. Ravine, he bale-fired, but that was a hell of an assist. Demandred was killed by Lan. Samael was killed by Mashadar. Agenor killed himself and then was killed by a dark friend. Bethalmel was killed by a tree. Aes Moghedien was killed by Graendal. Bilal was bale-fired by Moraine. Lanfear was killed by Moridin and then again by Perrin. Semirog, I guess he did kill Semirog. He bale-fires the hell out of Semirog when she goes after him with he uses the true power on her. That Semirog is the only one so far that I think he kills. Missana is broken by Egwene. Graendal, how's Graendal die?
Graendal gets mind wiped by Avienda.
Oh, that's right. She reflects her own compulsion back at her. She's also killed and put into Hessalam. I think that's just punishment. So I don't know who kills her that first time. I assume it's Moridin.
Yeah, it's off screen.
Yeah. And I did forget that technically Agenor is killed, or Bethalmel is bale-fired a second time by Rand in Natrim's Burrow.
Mm-hmm.
So that is his second kill. But, and third, if you want to count Ravine as a bale-fire.
I do.
Technically,
I think he gets that.
Yeah.
Nynaeve couldn't kill him on her own. It was a tag team effort, but Rand is the one who dealt the fatal blow.
Right. So there's 3 deaths. Yeah, 3 deaths. 3 of the Forsaken he's able to kill over the course of the series, permanently.
Is that more than Moraine, or is that just equal to Moraine?
I mean, yeah, if you want to count the first Lanfear as a kill.
Because she comes back.
And Bilal, no. Then yeah,
Okay.
She only kills 1.
No, she doesn't even kill Lanfear. She just takes Lanfear out of the picture.
Yeah. Right.
For a bit.
The only one she does kill is Bilal. And she's seen as killing Lanfear. And for all intents and purposes, the only way to rescue Lanfear is to kill her. So, yes.
No, she gets a lot of points for being a badass, but...
Right.
So we are going to Cadsuane's perspective.
Cadsuane. Definitely a divisive figure.
Oh, you don't say. Wow, have I read some discourse on Cadsuane.
That's rough. And I think there is some reasoning in this chapter that is why she acts the way she acts.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, that Rand, at this point, won't trust a gift handed to him. And so she has to essentially use reverse psychology on him.
Yeah. A lot of the justification for why she does what she does comes from this chapter. This is where we get a clear look into what she's doing, how she's evaluating her allies and assets and enemies and what her hardline beliefs are, what she will and won't sacrifice. So she's in Cairhien, and it's gray and raining, like it is here in the Pacific Northwest currently.
These books are just paralleling. It's too well, I tell you. As we move into our winter, so are they.
Mm-hmm. We see an Aielman staring at the sky in wonder, getting ruthlessly pickpocketed.
Which, bravo for that pickpocket. I would not, yeah. No way would I try that. No. Sorry, not worth my life or
bold.
Hand or whatever.
So bold.
Yeah. I'm not touching the Aielman. I don't care how distracted he is by rain, even if it is the first time in his life he's ever seen it.
Yeah.
But it is, I think what Jordan is saying there is how, like, the Aiel, the ones who are never distracted by anything, always ready, always fighting, and rain does it to them, like water falling from the sky, right? Like, it just blows their mind in a way that you can't, nothing else ever will, even rivers or whatever.
It's kind of like Californians.
Yeah, it's not hard to blow their minds.
Yeah, with rain specifically.
I was going to say with, basic facts and intelligence.
I was trying to stay on topic, personally.
No, I love Californians in California.
We get the wonderful line here about dogs seemed to know women who could channel as easily as cats did, but dogs appeared to think the women were cats, if unnaturally large ones. Beautiful line. Excellent piece of world building. Adore.
And that's something that we've heard way, way back early on in, like, Eye of the World. And I think, if you remember, me and Patrick spent a long time talking about it, and I think we actually found and referenced this paragraph as, like, they never mention it again, and then someone came up and was like, actually, I don't know if we found it or if we were able to get it, but it's fun to then encounter this line in the natural progression of the books, knowing it was something I was like, I've been waiting to hit this line for 4 years
like
now.
In episode 80 or whatever. Like,
yeah, something like that. Yeah, we talked, I think it was even earlier than that. Like, it's just
that's great.
Because it's one of Moraine's lines somewhere or something, I think. Or like
there's some mention about cats. Yeah, and then there's a mention later in the Black Tower. There's a reference with the dogs being super aggressive to that one Red whose name I'm spacing. The one who's bonded to Logain.
Yeah, I can't remember her name.
Tovain. Thank you, chat. Thank you, Nicholas.
Tovain. Yes,
like, I know there's a T in this, damn it. Yeah, Tovain. There's a line. She also thinks about the dog thing specifically in her experience, but not the cat thing. So, yeah, anyhow, I just have to point that out. And then we return to the conversation that Cadsuane is listening to, which is Daigion and Kumira arguing about the weather being a good thing or a bad thing, basically. And I will return to my rant that they should have sent a memo to the high-ups of the channeling world so that way they could know that this was, in fact, done for good intent by people on your team.
Daigion is gotta be, honestly, one of my favorites, right? Well, logically, therefore, some other hand is work, and it's excellent logic, and she's right on the money. She uses logic in the right way, at the right time, to come up with the right conclusion. She is a good white. And that's why Cadsuane uses her. Cadsuane plants her. She may be weak in the power, but she has an excellent mind. She's brilliant. And yeah, I have an affection for someone who can look at facts and put together analysis based on the facts. And may not be that powerful, but gets to sit around and listen to what everybody's saying and put together the truth. She's very Bulwer in that way.
Yeah, totally. And much like Min, she doesn't have the power to keep up with everyone else in the power, but she uses the strength of her mind to be an invaluable part of what's happening. And so I definitely appreciate that about her.
And as a Cairhien, she is well practiced in the game of houses and subtlety in that way.
Yeah. And this is the chapter where we see Cadsuane like deliberately using her and Kumira and being like, yeah, no, this whole strength ranking system for usefulness is silly. I'm going to use them. Look at how effectively that ploy worked. Ta-da, I am a genius. This is a lot of Cadsuane being very, very clever, and you seeing how she has so much experience going around manipulating people, gathering information, looking mysterious.
Totally.
Like, she's just clever.
And by the way, and Beldine's quite a bit in this chapter as well, correct?
No, Alana is in this chapter.
Oh, Alana. Okay. Daigion and Beldine died while linked with Evan Hotwell. Knife of Dreams.
Bummer.
So I assume, isn't that in...
I thought she lost her warder in the cleansing. She had an Ashaman warder, right? And then he dies in the cleansing, and she's sad about it. And then she yells at Nynaeve for trying to heal it. Yeah, Eben dies first.
Okay. Oh, wait. Oh, Eben died first while linked with them.
Yeah.
Got it. And then later, I thought they all died. Okay, I'm reading this wrong. But Daigion, interestingly enough, is killed by Shadar Haran when he comes to rescue Semirog.
Oh. But yeah, there's a great scene where Nynaeve's like, the bond creates magic pain. I should be able to magic it away. And Daigion's like, get the fuck out of here.
No,
this is sacred
right.
pain, and I'm going to work through it with my brain and my heart, which I respect, even though I understand where Nynaeve's coming from, because it is magically induced pain. Like, you're going to have plenty of grief for this person regardless.
Normally. That always bugged me a little bit about Suan, how she never really thought about her order until she got like healed, and then all of a sudden she had that grief again. And it's like,
that doesn't sit right with me.
No, and it seems like she should have grieved before for him.
Like, they had like a working relationship 20 years old. Like, she definitely would have felt something.
Right.
And I think that's Jordan messing up. I think she did feel something and Jordan forgot to tell us.
Yeah.
Hopefully, Rafe will fix it.
I love that we can just, every little detail that we're like, oh, it's not perfect. Rafe will fix that. It's fine. No, it'll be fine. Like, we can't expect a bunch of problems with the show. There's going to be so many things that we're like, oh, that's not great about the show. Just because there's so much world building. There's going to be things that are inconsistent like that.
But some of the things that we've mentioned, they are going to make exactly those choices. We've thrown enough ideas at the wall. Yep. One of them is going to actually be exactly how they go for it, and we're going to feel very vindicated.
I can't wait. I can't wait to find out that Rafe listens to the podcast and gets half his ideas from us.
Just listens to us to, fact check how awesome they are. Yeah, they definitely listen to us to hear. Totally. We are the audience they care about.
I do know. So another tangent. We're tangenting hard today, guys. Sorry. I saw in an interview that I was going to say Moraine and Land. Jesus, they've really printed in my head. Roseman and Daniel Henney had been watching some reaction trailers. And, I know some of the other folks have watched various stuff. It wouldn't be shocking to me if a cast member or two had listened to a few episodes of the podcast.
It does seem inevitable that we've been hit a couple of times, just because there's a lot of people who we are a name that exists and they've been engaging. So it seems unlikely that none of them have ever crossed paths with our content. Yeah.
But we have no wait, hold on. Let me see if we've got any downloads. Thing is, they're not listening when they're working, Probably listening at home. I'd never be able to. Yeah, maybe they're waiting until after they finish the books, but I imagine they're pretty well spoiled on the entire story at this point.
Well, and we've also been doing a lot of reacting to the show, which is probably the content that they would check out if they're just trying to skim around. They're going to want to see, how are people reacting? And I'm actually so I know Facebook is generally the blight, but I tend to curate my Facebook really well. And I am in a cool group called Cold Rocks Hold, an inclusive Wheel of Time community. And in that, there was one of the people who started it, who I've talked with before, was mentioning that they are hearing us. They got into the group and said, look, I can't tell you much, but I can tell you that they are hearing us and they are enjoying knowing our experiences. And so put in this thread how you came to Wheel of Time and what it means to you. Promise you they will see it. I can't tell you any other details, but I can move these messages along from this thread. And so, they know us in a way that I don't think many show casts have ever made an effort to do.
I'm not sure many show casts have had the fandom that Wheel of Time has before it was a show. I fully believe that there are bigger fandoms out there after the show comes out, but Wheel of Time has sold so many copies and has such a passionate following for such a long time. And I was around for the Game of Thrones fandom. There was not the hype for the Game of Thrones show, because it wasn't proven that you could do a show like that. We were excited that HBO was doing it, but we're like, oh, it's going to give it a shot. But I will give early Game of Thrones, a lot of credit for what they did to push fantasy onto a screen, and because you cannot deny the shared DNA between.
Oh no, they're siblings. They grew up together. So much crossover in fandom. Mm-hmm.
So I always say Jordan was the reason Martin sold his books, but Martin's the reason Jordan is getting a TV show.
It's a symbiotic relationship. Everyone can win.
Yeah.
Everyone can be the good guy in this, except for, the double Ds, because fuck those guys.
Like I said, there were 5 great seasons of TV to come out of Game of Thrones.
Yeah, that's and also I just speculate in a hope punk kind of way. Like, part of the reason why the fandom is so engaged is because there's like every other person's a content creator, and a lot of content creators credit Watt Spoilers with inspiring them to make content. So feedback loop, butterfly wings. I'm just put it out there. Just put it out there.
If they looked at us, they were like, "Well, those dummies can do it. Maybe
That's why
I certainly have a shot."
Podcast was because you didn't like what else was out there.
It is.
So, the proliferation of fans.
That's part of it. Yeah.
The power of the internet, the power of millennials with too much time on their hands, and a love of a book series that goes back into their childhoods. Like, we've all frothed up to meet this moment because Game of Thrones got us all primed and then got us all sad. Like, this moment couldn't have happened before now. That's why I'm glad Wheel of Time is happening now and not sooner.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a real good point. It's like, I don't think, okay, maybe a year or two sooner would have been fine.
Minus the fucking pandemic for sure.
But yeah, significantly amount of time earlier. No, I don't think. And I don't think you could have done the show justice from I hate to say this, but the books were handicapped by the time they were written in. They were absolutely handicapped by the lack of like, he was doing so much to break ground on the gender dynamic that he had so far to go just to get to basic, and we're already, so that's, I think we can take those final few steps for him.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
I'm not trying to say I want to go down a different path than Jordan. I just think like he was starting so far behind that we need to take those last few steps for him.
Yeah, we've said it before on the podcast that RJ would probably approve of a lot of the changes that we think should be made and the alternatives we have. Like, RJ would probably agree with us. Rafe literally said that in an interview that I was reading the other day, something to that very, very similar effect. It's like, he made that world that we can see where it needs to go. And I'm so grateful that it's happening now.
And we've heard from Harriet, who is the editor of these books, which puts as much into her as anybody else, as well as the husband of the author, who would know better than anybody else, that, he would have loved these changes.
Wife, but yeah. Spouse, sure.
Nibbling. Love the term nibbling, by the way.
Yeah, it is a very cool term.
Yeah. I could see my nibblings this Christmas.
Yeah.
I haven't seen them in 6 years. It's been a
wow.
while. I'm a bad uncle.
Anyhow, we should probably return to the book.
Wow, did we not touch on Cadsuane in the slightest?
Kumira is a brown that is little given to their usual failings, in Cadsuane's opinion. So she's got this extremely logical white and this extremely empiricist sort of brown.
Right. Which is a great way to define the difference between browns and whites. So many people are like, well, what's the difference? Here, this conversation is the difference.
Yep.
Right? Like, and if you're looking at like astrophysicists, it's the people who do the math versus the people who look at the sky.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Geology, the people who do the chemistry analysis and the people who do field work.
The physicists and the engineers.
Yeah, very much so. The people who write books and the people who make podcasts about them. Not quite the same comparison.
No, not really. But close enough.
Not really.
But so yeah, she's pissed about the Aes Sedai being sort of undignified, but she's like, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's the end of the world, right? I'll do whatever it takes to Aes Sedai because it's the end of the world, just to get what I want.
Oh yeah, I love that. Like, to achieve her goal, she would have run the entire tower through the streets naked. Like, she is focused in a way that few Aes Sedai seem to be. But yeah, they're like, we gotta help the sisters in the Aiel tents, and Cadsuane's like, literally fuck them. They deserve exactly what they are getting. Like, they messed up so many things, and normally I would care, but now I don't. And I mean, she blames every Aes Sedai ever, including Moraine, our girl Moraine, which is unfair. But it's a Cadsuane thing to think.
On some level, it's a little fair.
It messed up her mission, but her mission is questionable in terms of its efficacy. So
I'm just saying Moraine never did a lot to earn Rand's trust. She always tried to manipulate him. She always tried to control him. It was only at the end that she figured out how to be an advisor to him without being a controlling figure.
it's true. It's just a little rich coming from Cadsuane, who does not learn that lesson in the slightest.
Absolutely. But she's dealing with a different Rand. She's dealing with a suspicious Rand. Never again, right? She's dealing with a totally different person. And so even though her approach looks the same and similar, it's, in a lot of ways, I don't think being nice would have worked.
For sure. For sure. I just don't shit on Moraine like a lot in the same breath as Elida. Like, they're not the same.
Totally there with you. I know she checks all her ornaments as she gets out of the wagon. That's definitely just pointing out those ornaments. That is a paralysis net.
They live with her. She just doesn't lose them because she never lets them out of her sight. And also her sewing basket, which is so much more than a sewing basket. She is a witch in so many of the traditional senses of the word. She's just got her little basket with all of her little tools that she can just absolutely razzle and dazzle you with.
So what else is in the basket? That was my question.
It's her entire purse of useful tools. All the useful shit she would need. Like, that's her overnight bag. That's her, like, one powered up magic stuff. Like, it's just got all kinds of stuff. That's her Swiss Army box.
So it's her, like, Batman utility belt.
Yeah. And she's got sewing stuff in it, so that way she does because the embroidery is a way for her to have, like, subterfuge when she's, like, just sitting in the corner embroidering. Like, she really does have some sewing stuff in there, but it's her entire utility kilt overnight bag.
I like when she puts a rose on there, and that always reminds me of the scene with Min. I was like, it's a swallow, right? It's a bird.
Yeah, she's a little bit better at embroidery than Min.
Much better. She's had a little more practice over the last 300 some odd years.
And then she describes the fact that it is winter, finally. She actually gets it with the weather. She's not like, oh, the weather's randomly changing. She's like, oh, winter has been unstuck. The weather's been unstuck. We're getting winter, finally.
We saw that argument between them. That was what the whole argument between...
Yeah, just on the last page, yeah.
The two Aes Sedai, as they were saying. Yeah, they're just saying, like, hey, I think it's for this reason. I think it's for that reason. So that everyone knows, like, clearly the weather is changing. It is no longer a question of, like, oh, we had a storm. It's like, no, this is not the heat anymore. The heat is broken.
Yeah. And then we see three Aes Sedai that she promptly ignores because... they are the apprentices, and she has very little respect for them because of the dog's dinner they made of everything. So she goes and, like, interacts with the holder of the keys and all this stuff for, like, a whole page, being like, nope, not dealing with you.
Nope.
And there's this interesting point about the embroidery on the servant's garb, and Cadsuane's, like, noticing, like, oh, like, the holder of the keys isn't, like, pushing back on that, which means the support for Rand is like this. Like, she's noting everything at every level. She's like Tom, like that.
Definitely. And again, the experience, but also just the intelligence. And she's able to move around pretty freely because the Aiel see her as having saved Rand's life. Like, when he went into the fog and got stabbed, Cadsuane was the one who brought him out, right? Without any Aiel protection. So without her, he would have been dead. So they are honoring her, and that gives her a lot of freedoms as someone who is, clearly... she's earned quite a bit of G. Yeah. So, the Aiel have toe to her. And so they're letting her... because if she hadn't saved his life, the Aiel's honor would be gone.
Yep. And I mean, yes, she earned that G. She definitely protected him in a way that the Aiel couldn't do. Like that, yep, correct read by the Aiel. Like, they are not confused. They got that right.
So barely more than a week since he nearly got himself killed. So that's probably, 11, 12 days? More than a week?
Yeah.
And not only had he managed to elude her completely, he had made her task even more difficult if half of what he heard was true. So that appears to him becoming harder after killing Laia in Shadar Logoth, I think is what's happened. He evaded her, went to Shadar Logoth, killed a woman, and suddenly the list has really started. He's become super hard after that.
Yeah. Yeah, and these Aes Sedai are not relevant. I mean, they show up, but she's all about Rand, right? Like, they're like, hey, Cadsuane, what are you doing? She's like, you're ridiculous. And then they're like, we're going to oppose you. if you don't do what we think you should do. And she's like, that's adorable. Move along. And also take these two with you because I need to get them out of my hair. And then they go off and do sneaky things. But like she's just getting them out of her way as fast as she can. She is so focused on Rand, and she doesn't know the thing about Leah, right? She doesn't know what's going on with him at all. She just knows that he's sliding farther and farther away from where she needs him to be.
Right. No idea what's going on. So she's just trying to, I think that's why she's here. She's trying to get any clues she can about him. What is going on with Rand? Like, what is his emotional state? Well, she can't be with him. And so she's just interrogating everybody about everything. A pity he hadn't been raised in Farmatting, but then that might have led to its own catastrophe.
Might?
Because, in Farmatting, men are trained to do basically whatever women say. They are second-class citizens. It's not even like Ebu Dar, where they're sort of like, women are sort of domineering. This is actually like a dual-class system. Yeah,
Farmatting's very different from the other cultures that we've seen with respect to gender dynamics.
So can you imagine a Farmatting male with land fear?
I don't want to. That is scary.
Right? That early time when Selene was hanging out with Rand.
Oh, man.
Just how quickly she would have dominated him if he was a Farmatting male.
Yeah. Cadsuane doesn't know the bullet that they are all dodging. So she gets taken to a room that already had servants run ahead to set the fire and bring tea and cookies and all of that. And she just sets up to embroider and work on her thing for a little bit, but puts the mirror of her handbasket such that she can see the door and appear like a mind reader when Alana comes stomping in.
I have a question about this, about her embroidery. The major image on her piece of embroidery was finished. A man's hand clutching the ancient symbol of the Aes Sedai. Cracks ran across the black and white disc. There was no telling whether the hand was trying to hold it together or crush it. She knew what she intended, but time would tell what was the truth.
That's such an interesting line.
Is this a dream? Could she have had some sort of prophetic dream about Rand crushing the seals? Is Cadsuane a dreamer?
I mean, I could totally see it. She's got that kind of intelligence and strength of will and personality. She does remind me of Egwene in so many ways. Like, maybe?
Or is that just she's talking about... Because if it was just the symbol of the White Tower, I would understand. But that doesn't... This really does seem to be the seals that he's breaking.
Yeah, and it might also just be that she is able to create the allegorical picture of what she knows from just studying the lore, studying the Cairhien cycle, knowing that she's participating in this. She's like, I know the symbols that I want to represent this, while I just idly move my hands and wait for time to pass in various ways. Like maybe she's just an artist, I guess is what I'm saying. It's hard to imagine she wouldn't have noticed she was a dreamer.
Yeah, for some reason, Cadsuane always seems to be somebody who has a leg up on knowledge. She seems to know a little bit about what's coming. I don't know if she just projects that, but I want her to have, gone through the Wise One Terangrial and have visions of the future, or, the Portal Stone. Some sort of clue that clues her in as to what she needs to be doing.
Maybe she messed with the Terangrial and, had some kind of experience and then was like, never again. That was too much.
Right. So maybe not a dreamer, but some sort of prophecy that she was put in her head. I don't know. It's stretching on that one, but it's such a vibrant image that, means so much about the series. It's hard to think that she doesn't at least have some sort of inside knowledge.
Yeah, and I mean, the fact that she's putting a bright red rose as one of the surrounding images, does she realize how important Elaine is and Andor is? Is that just a coincidence? It gives her a certain, does she have a god's eye view of, all the allegorical pieces that are coming together around him? Where is she getting that perspective from? Is it just because she's old and wise, or does she have some kind of magical clue?
And then let's talk about the other thing that could give her the advantage. The paralysis net. We don't know what all those Terangrial do. What if one of them lets you see omens or something like that?
Yeah, maybe.
Gives you the Doomseer prophecy power. I mean, I'm stretching far on that one, but she doesn't know what all the Terangrial do. And what if she wears one to bed, and that's like gives her the power of a dreamer?
There's so many unknowns. Speaking of unknowns, there's this short list of what's in her basket that has nothing to do with sewing: an ivory hand mirror and hairbrush and comb, a pen case and tightly stoppered ink bottle, a number of things that she had found useful to have at hand over the years, including some that would have surprised anyone with nerve enough to search the basket. That's all we get.
Well, we know there's some poison in there. Well, no, that's Varen's poison.
I imagine she has some notebooks, probably encrypted, probably some, clean underwear. Because she's prepared. Band-Aids, Skittles.
Are you basically saying it's a purse? It's like a standard woman's purse that just has everything in there?
It's somewhere between a tool belt and like a backpack purse. But then, it's got this, tray on top with sewing supplies. Yeah, this is a sewing basket.
Hammer space. The next thing I have is the stuff with Alanna.
Yeah, so Alanna comes in and like does the whole like about to leave, about to come back, and Cadsuane's just watching in the mirror until she finally has her nerve up and then speaks, and Alana's like, how does she read my mind? And it's like, smoke and mirrors, girl, smoke and mirrors.
Right. Cadsuane's been around long enough to basically be a stage magician.
Yeah.
And she uses that as much as she uses the one power to emphasize. Because that's how you trick other Aes Sedai into thinking you're more powerful. Is you use some basic stage magic. Because then they think you're using actual magic. They're like, how did she do that? But you're not.
Yeah. There are advantages to being a legend. People seldom notice the obvious when dealing with a legend. Yeah.
And she's using her legendary status like a magician uses a distraction. Look over here, look over here, look over here. Look your pocket.
Yeah, her reputation precedes her and she knows how that works. Yeah, it's great. It's just great. And Alanna is like, leave me alone. Rand's my warder. Very pouty. And Cadsuane just kind of looks at her and is like, you literally mind raped a man. The only reason I'm not telling on you is because it would complicate things, which is like morally ambiguous at best, but also like does get Alana's attention. So
it also pisses Alanna off, so she seizes the true power.
The one power.
And then I think we get what is one of my... The
true
one
source,
power.
one power.
From the true source. Damn you. I was going to be Dark Friend. No. Actually, I wonder, bonded to Rand, who has access to the true power, could she access it?
Probably not. Unless the Dark One wanted that kind of chaos.
Unless they were actually, like, linked. Right. Back to this line. She made no move to embrace the source herself. One of the dangling hair ornaments, intertwined golden crescents, was cool on her temple.
Yep.
What other... there's only one other Tower in Grial that's cool when someone is channeling or seizing the source. And that's Matt's
because Alanna grabs Cyndar and Cadsuane's like, yeah, come try it. Yep. Fuck around and find out, girl. Right. Come on. Fucking dare you.
But yeah, intertwined golden crescents, just sort of like, I imagine sort of like this.
Yeah, like two overlapping circles, but just the parts that overlap.
Right. And with pointy sticking out.
Which I was reading an article really quickly about like how this is like a symbol of the divine feminine, and you find it all over the floor design of the White Tower in the show, and that's like some super cool sacred geometry, kind of like fuck you patriarchy stuff, and that's a delight. So I like that happens to show up here right after I read that article.
Yeah, those intertwined gold. I feel like that's a symbol I've seen like associated with witches a lot.
Yeah, double moons for sure. Yeah, that's the thing.
And so that's really the first proof that we're like, oh wow, she has. First of all, she just has that medallion, right, which makes her super powerful. Any Aes Sedai fighting her is going to be in for a big surprise.
Yeah, she has so many surprises up her sleeve, or more accurately, in her hair.
Yeah. Upper bun, not upper bum, upper bun. Very different things.
But yeah, Alanna tells her basically that she's feeling Rand bouncing around, having adventures without her in the south, and she doesn't know any more than that. And okay, so loony theory time. On this the next thing I have is loony theory time.
Yeah.
The dark tea tasted too much of mint. Cairhien used mint entirely too freely, in her opinion. She did not offer a cup to Alanna. Wacky theory. There's fork root in the tea, and one of her Tower Grial negates it.
That someone was like trying to drug her.
And if she had offered some to Alanna, Alanna would have experienced it. And it's just, mint Mint. He's mentioning mint. It's too minty. It's just like, and she doesn't know what half of her hair ornaments do. So one of them could totally like prevent poisoning. Maybe. Your enthusiasm is blowing me away.
Well, I'm trying to find out where she poured herself a cup of tea. I'm trying to figure out where the tea came from.
It was put there by a serving woman appeared almost as soon as they, with both hot tea and spiced wine on a tray and small cakes glazed with honeys. Plainly, Corgaida had sent orders ahead to prepare while she was waiting in the hall. It's
possible.
Like Dark Friend assassination is definitely who I'm going with for the perpetrator on that.
Unfortunately, there's just too many mentions of mint tea throughout the series for them all to be fork root. And, like, it's one of those things where there's no... I'd need something besides the mint flavor.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it's a wacky theory.
Yeah. I mean, keep an eye out if Cadsuane, like, passes out suddenly or something. That, you know, like, I don't know. But...
No, it's unlikely, but...
It's unlikely, yeah. I like the idea.
I hate mint, so I'm on a vendetta to besmirch its name at all opportunities.
And it would be nice to find another function of the Throne Grill in her hair.
Yeah, also that. The quest for what does Cadsuane have on her bun.
Timber's being just... He's right here. I've got a bit of a sandwich on my desk, and he is so intent on getting a bite of that. He's a good boy.
Oh, Timber. No good, that sad face. You clearly starve him. That is the face of a starving dog.
Obviously.
The intensity.
Haven't fed him in years.
No, he's looking at that sandwich like he doesn't even care that he's getting scritches. Like,
nope. He's like, that sandwich.
Okay, so Cadsuane is like traveling. God damn it, this is really frustrating information. And then she yells at Alana, and Alana's like, you would have mind raped him too if you were in my shoes. And Cadsuane's like, maybe. And it's sort of a pout off. Which just, it really lets you know that Cadsuane is a morally gray character. She might be on the right side, but she is very morally gray.
She's an ends justify this the means character. She's willing to do anything to accomplish her goal. But she no longer considered even making Alana pass the bond to her. Alana had proved how useless that was in controlling him, which means the fact that she no longer considers it means for a long time she was definitely considering it.
Yep. Which is just, that's a lot.
I would have actually enjoyed that more, I think. I think that would have been a good place to take the bond, having it passed off to somebody else who never would have done it in the first place and who becomes an advisor to him.
No, she totally would have done it in the first place. That's what she's saying right here. She totally might have done it.
Might have.
She might have. I think she would have. I think that ambiguity is her giving herself a glowing review because she doesn't actually have to deal with that question. I don't know. Maybe not. But yeah. That would have been an interesting thing. It did feel like the whole bond situation kind of got a little underutilized in the end. So having Cadsuane get it would have made it a much more interesting direction for that to go.
Just better to explore the relationship between them and, like, you know, her maybe taking on that bond and then trying to justify to him why she took on that bond.
And maybe then letting him go at the end because, like, she's got respect for him.
Right.
Maybe.
Right. That's one of the ways she proves to help him, you know, tears and things is like, you're right. You know, you can trust us here. I'm releasing the bond. So you are no longer, you know, that was an involuntary thing. I see your side now. Like, you could do something with that.
And Sorilea?
Yeah, I think Aimwalk's one of the baddest bitches besides Cadsuane in the world at this point, which is Sorilea.
Cadsuane had encountered the woman before, and interesting encounters they had been, if brief. She had not met many people she considered formidable.
Oh, I'm sorry. Before we move on, I do have to do one thing. I will keep you fully informed, Alana sighed, pouting like a girl. Cadsuane itched to slap her. Alana had worn the shawl almost 40 years. Does it say almost 40 years in your book?
It does. That's wrong.
So there is a discrepancy here, because in Lord of Chaos, chapter 43, there's information that pegs Alana as 36 years old. And
she is in the same cohort as Moraine and Swain. So she's worn the shawl for 20-ish years.
Yeah, 20 years.
Yeah, Luke Blightwalker in chat asking if Alana was only just raised in New Spring. Yeah, she's raised like within a month of Moraine and Swan, I think.
Right.
So, nope, hasn't been almost 40 years. That's wrong.
That's
it's been more like 20.
Let me look. Alana, she's born in 953, again, according to Lord of Chaos. So that would only put her, just in her late 40s. She and Alana and Shiriam were novices together.
Mm-hmm.
All that makes sense. So there's no way she could be 40 years old. Or have been more than for 40 years. That has to be a mistake.
Incorrect.
Yeah.
Maria!
No, I saw that and I was just like, that seems like a long time.
Yeah. Speaking of old people,
anyway,
though,
back to Sorilea.
Cadsuane is like, I found someone as old as me in Sorilea, which is super unusual and unlikely.
Is Sorilea older than Cadsuane?
I don't know.
Let's actually do the math. Oh, we don't get a specific age for Sorilea. We've talked about this before. We don't know how old she is exactly. She's just ancient, so there's no way to really pin that down.
Is Bear older than Sorilea? We don't know. I probably none of them know.
Sorilea. How would say that? I got nothing. Sorry, guys.
Okay.
Moving on.
The next thing I have is this interaction with Kiruna, which is really cool between her and Sorilea, because she comes in like an apprentice. Like Kiruna is actually committing to the thing, and because she blushes when she stumbles in the way an apprentice would blush. Like she's starting to internalize Ji'ito in that way and like set aside her Aes Sedai pride, and Sorilea points it out and she's like confused and pleased, and like there's this whole mix of emotions because she says, "You have begun to make a true effort, girl. If you continue, you will do very well." It's like Sorilea is actually praising an Aes Sedai, not as an Aes Sedai, as an apprentice.
Yeah. And she's taken the same path that Egwene took.
Yeah.
Right? Amyrlin Training School. Like maybe we have the makings of the next Amyrlin seat in Kiruna. Like that seems to be taking the childish nature of the Aes Sedai and the incompetence that has sort of been built into the structure and essentially saying you don't need to do that anymore. You need to act in an honorable way, not just obey the letter of the law about telling the truth, but actually be honorable.
Yeah, I mean, the way that she says it here is Kiruna has to learn that she owns her pride. It does not own her. Like, it's a total shift in how you approach yourself and your relationship to the world. And that's what they teach. And it's pretty neat, even if they do use corporal punishment a bit excessively to get the message across.
It's a different world,
And she totally like throws shade at Aes Sedai. Like, it's hard enough to learn a second weave without all the hand waving you Aes Sedai do.
I love that shade. Which, okay, bringing me back to the show, one of the things that Rosamund Pike talked about is like, I'm doing a lot of this. I'm doing a lot of hand movement and tossing and throwing. It feels to me like that's something someone would do. I don't want to just be standing there doing nothing. Right? Like, she talked about that. Like, that was just it looks better on TV. But this is a great line to justify that, because it shows, like, all those Aes Sedai do that hand-waving and tossing stuff, so of course Moraine would do that, whereas the wise ones don't.
Yeah. But yeah, in the text, we don't get descriptions of hand-waving, because they just do the weave, and that's the whole description. And yeah, to see it through an Aiel's eyes is different. And I do wonder if that's going to be something they keep in the world building for the show, if they have like cultural differences in styles of channeling to help distinguish the different groups and like create friction between them.
The quotes I heard from Rosamund made it sound like it was more an individual woman's decision as to how they wanted to represent the weaves.
But then we also saw them like all doing that shield the same way. Yeah. So I wonder if we're going to see like the Aiel being like distinctly different, even if they still have that individualized kind of thing. I don't know. I'm curious where they go.
So just to follow up, Sorilea is over 200 and one of the oldest.
Very helpful.
Yeah. No. Over 200 is a range.
But yeah, this is also where we get the whole explanation about second weave learning being hard. Not super interesting. We've talked about that many, many times.
Talked about how that's the reason that Aviendha can't weave a gateway very well,
Yeah.
because she's already learned a different way first, but now she can't reproduce it, so now she's just stuck
Right.
not weaving good gateways.
And then Cadsuane, segues into being like, oh, right, yes, it's good to be reminded that the Aiel Wise Ones are just as sophisticated as I am, even though they're not White Tower trained, which is like, how good of you to deign to give them their humanity. So good, generous of you.
I know, but a lot of people don't. A lot of people do not give Aiel humanity. A lot of people don't give them, they call them savages. They
Yeah,
think they're
she
dumb,
uses
right?
that word
Like,
here, ignorant savages.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very saintly of her to do that, Should really put her up on a pedestal and praise her about everything.
And then I love this little exchange of information between Cadsuane and Sorilea, which starts off with what sounds like Sorilea just venting. Being like, God damn it, Alana's frustrating. How can I can't even punish her. Like, what the hell? How can I punish her if what I do to her, the Cairhien feels? Like, I'm not allowed, I can't hurt the Cairhien because some stupid Aes Sedai is being willful. And Cadsuane, I think, partially out of an olive branch, but mostly just because I think Alana's annoying her too. She's like, oh, well, it's fine. You can punish him. Won't hurt him a bit. He'll barely even be aware of it if at this distance. And I think that is where the relationship starts between the two of them. Is this sort of like Sorilea being frustrated, both of them basically being frustrated with Alana is what it boils down to, right? That's what their like united front was. Yeah, totally. It was like, oh my God, Alana's so dumb. Yeah, she is. So let's hang out.
That's funny. That's funny. Yeah, no, it's very true. And then it also puts Cadsuane on the slightly defensive because she's like, I was trying to hide that secret about how Alana and Rand are bonded, but apparently that card is out of my hand before the game even starts, so that's cool.
Yeah.
And then Sorilea's like, do I give her water? Maybe. I might give her some water. I might make water oath. Like, she brings the whole pitcher in because she wants this to be the most solemn ritual that wise ones have.
Right. Well, I missed that. Nice. And then I think this is actually a deep understanding of what's going on with Rand and Cadsuane. Sorilea says, most men will take what is offered, if it seems attractive and pleasant. Once we thought of Randall Thorso. That's why they gave
Aviendha. Yeah.
Aviendha.
That's where the whole Aviendha situation was coming from for them.
Yep. Unfortunately, it's too late to change the path we walk. Now he suspects whatever is offered freely. Now, if I want him to accept something, I will pretend I did not want him to have it. If I wanted to stay close to him, I would pretend indifference to whether I ever saw him again. That is exactly what Cadsuane's doing.
Yep, Sorilea's saying, I see you. I see what you're doing.
Yeah. And then there's this conversation between the difference between strong and hard.
Which is the crux of why they have an alliance, is because they agree on this distinction and what it means for Rand's journey.
Mm-hmm. And that is something we see with Quendiar. Like, Quendiar can be shattered. It can't be bent.
Well,
like, Quendiar is strong. It is not hard. And the Dark One is able to shatter it. And that's what they don't want him to do to Rand.
Right. And Rand is, meanwhile, trying to make himself Quendiar.
Exactly. Which we're like, didn't the Dark One already take out the Quendiar seals?
I might want to rethink that strategy slightly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Quendiar is not really the what you want to model yourself on. As you pick up, as you literally have fragile Quendiar seals in your hands that you're going to break. Right?
Yeah,
like,
as strong endures, hard shatters. Unless he finds laughter and tears again, the world faces disaster. He must learn that the dragon reborn is flesh. If he goes to Tarmangaiden as he is, even his victory may be as dark as his defeat. Which, that's accurate. She is correct about all of that.
And I do believe that's foreshadowing Dragonmount, that his, like, if he went to Dragonmount as dark as he was, if they hadn't found his laughter again, he would destroy the world there. Yeah.
So they're really cards on the table exchanging information here. And Cadsuane is cautiously optimistic because, as she says, targets even a hand apart might not be at all alike.
A hand being 6 inches.
She will do whatever it takes to make sure that her target gets hit. She's willing to work with Sorilea, but also to keep some things back.
Mm-hmm. My God, it's like communication happening between characters can create effective alliances and shortcut all the craziness.
Bizarre.
What?
In my Wheel of Time?
Well, not in my... But I think there's a good point here of experience versus inexperience. Like, part of the reason our characters fail is because they fail to communicate. And here's Cadsuane being like, no, we're going to communicate with the relevant people.
Well, because Sorilea comes over and is like, you want to communicate? Cadsuane's like, thank God there's someone with a fucking brain in this entire cast. And then Sorilea gives her the ultimate olive branch of we should really be besties, which is traveling.
Yes. Yep. And that's something she learned from Egwene in the dream.
Yep.
So that's when Cadsuane's just like,
how is this happening? Where did they learn this?
How is this happening? I assume that what they were learning was just being pulled out of existing Aes Sedai, because again, she still does kind of think of them as savages up to this point.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, they don't know all these things. She notices that they didn't know how to link a couple of days beforehand, all that stuff. And it turns out they're just learning from Egwene, who's been teaching them in the dream in exchange for all the other stuff she's been doing. They've been doing for her.
And it puts Cadsuane in Sorilea's debt, which pleases Sorilea very much, and Cadsuane is willing to accept because, yeah, she's like, you got one up on me. I respect you. Like, game respects game kind of thing is what's happening here.
Also, thanks for the gateways.
Yeah,
that's
ginormous.
Awesome. But think about it this way, too. Sorilea has someone who can make a gateway for her.
Mm-hmm.
Although I guess there are other wise ones who could have done it, but...
more options is good.
Yeah.
Well, that is all I've got notated.
Yeah. I'll just read us out. This time, there was no doubt of the brief smile that flashed across Sorilia's lips. She knew very well that Cadsuane was in her debt. Taking up the heavy, golden pitcher with both hands, she carefully filled the small white cups with plain water. She did not spill a drop. I offer you an oath, she said solemnly, picking up one of the cups. By this we are bound as one, to teach Randall Thor laughter and tears. She sipped, and Cadsuane imitated her. We are bound as one. And if the targets turned out not to be the same at all, she did not underestimate Sorilea as an ally or opponent, but Cadsuane knew which target had to be struck, at any cost.
At any cost.
At any cost. That's Cadsuane in a heartbeat.
That is who she is, and
in a nutshell,
respect her. She's dedicated.
Definitely.
And thus ends the last chapter we're going to do before the show drops and the world changes forever.
I'm so excited, guys. Thank you for sticking with us for this one. I know that was a long one with a lot of tangents.
That's a lot.
It was a lot. So, but I feel like there was a lot in that
was a
chapter.
hefty
Any
chapter.
Forsaken chapter, and then you throw Cadsuane on top of that.
At the end of the episode. Now that you have reached the end of episode 400, our final episode that we're releasing before the show drops, we have a little something to give away to you.
Yeah, I was contacted a week or two ago by Tor Books, and apparently they've released a new Eye of the World with a new cover based on the show. And it's Moraine walking through the Waygate with Wheel Time. If you're seeing the video, you can see it behind us. But yeah, they sent me 5 books and just asked me to give them away. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a little bit of a random drawing for those of you who want to submit your, name?
Yeah, and an answer to a question. If you want to play the game, you could maybe win one of these 5 copies, which if you want, we could sign. We could sign it if you want. We don't have to, but we live close enough together that's an option.
That's an option. So what we want you to do is go to the YouTube reaction video where Aradia and I react to the official Wheel of Time trailer. In that, we want you to tell us, what is Aradia's theory about Moraine swearing on the Oath Rod?
Specifically, my loony/wacky theory. You'll know it when you see it.
You'll know when you see it. So, we want you to send us the following things: your name, your address, the answer to the question I just asked, and your Twitter name. You send us those 4 things within the next week.
1 week of when this episode drops. And this episode is going to drop the day before the show.
The 18th.
So 1 week from then, the contest will close, and we will announce a winner on Twitter shortly after that.
5 winners.
5 winners. Yes.
And we will randomly select from everyone who submitted the information within that time. So there's no time pressure to be first, but you do need to fill out those answers and send them to us within that week.
Within a week. Good luck. They're, new books, new Eye of the Worlds, because we all give away Eye of the Worlds so fast that we lose them. I recently reorganized the books in my office. Well, got a new bookshelf, and I can't find my copy of Eye of the World. Because
I'm sure I gave it away to somebody.
It's a problem. So that you need one. If you're a hardcore enough fan that you made it to the end of the episode and you're, going to go watch this video, you're going to need another copy of Eye of the World.
Yeah. Let us know. We're just excited to be able to give these away and excited to have the show coming out. I'm super excited.
Yeah, and excited to be contacted by Tor. Like, the book publisher, right. Tor sends a message to our Twitter. I'm like, I have how many Tor books on my bookshelf? They're messaging us. Like, it's pretty fun. And this leads us into a reminder that you may remember from the top of the episode, but we're going to reiterate here. You need to come over to our YouTube channel.
Yes.
If you want to get our thoughts about the show. We are going to be using YouTube because it's a visual medium to discuss this extremely visual version of the content. So you're not going to hear from us here on the podcast for 2 months. We'll see you in 2022. Because we're going to be dealing with the show over on YouTube. So if you want to hear our thoughts about that, you need to come on over to YouTube. The link, as always, is in the show notes and easy to find.
So yeah, we're doing Christmas, we're doing New Year's, and then we'll come back and have ourselves some more Wheel of Time book content as we get into Rand and Egwene as they, make mistakes.
More or less.
More or less, yeah. All right, well, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Please send us your information if you want a copy of Eye of the World, and have a great next couple of weeks enjoying the show.
We'll see you around.
I know I will.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or
support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?